Hi, it's Anne. Thanks for stopping by. I made 3 notebooks all at once today, and I think they turned out so cute. They are little writing books. They're not big fancy junk journals, but they're made as gifts, and I just love them. I think they're so cute. I think anybody would be delighted to get these if they wanted to write down some of their thoughts. And lots of room to write. I didn't make them big and intimidating with lots of our traditional junk journal elements. This one doesn't have a signature in it yet, but the cover is done inside and out. And guess what I used to make each of these? I used 2025 calendars. And I just am just so thrilled with how they turned out. So I thought you might want to see how the whole thing came together. So you're now seeing the end result, the spoiler. But I know people like to see where projects are going at the beginning. So anyway, this is where we end up. And I'm going to now take you back in time and we can see how we got here. Okay, going back in time to the beginning of this project, you now know more than I do on how this whole thing turned out. So, we'll see. I have quite a stack of calendars. I save them year to year and I pick them up different places. Some of them are quite old. But these, with the exception of this one, that's a cool big sheet. I could almost turn that into a masterboard of some sort. I think I'm going to set that aside. Or maybe I could just cut out the month part or the November and use that in another journal. But anyway, the 3 I want to concentrate on are these. This one was from a charity I support, and I thought it was interesting because the many calendars have stunning photography. This one had sketches. It's sort of old-fashioned looking, lots of birds and naturey, gardeny sorts of things. It looks like I've cut into it already. So that's a little more the demure, sweet sort of look I could go for. This one, where did I get this? I must have picked it up maybe at Scrap or the thrift store or something, but it was a 2025 calendar, and it looks like Van Gogh, inspired by Starry, Starry Night, or is it just Starry Night? Yeah. But these are not Van Gogh paintings. They are inspired by Van Gogh using scenes from various national parks. And I loved that. I thought that would be fun. Of course, it's, very, a little more avant-garde looking than I usually go for. But I thought for a series of little booklets, little notebooks, I thought it might be really, really nice to use. And it's such a distinctive style that if I made a notebook or a journal based solely on this calendar, I could have a really nice cohesive look through the whole thing, a lot of consistency. There is this artist's interpretation of the famous Arches National Park, and I thought that was just really gorgeous, and it's on the cover. So there's that one, and I can't wait to see how this comes out. This is a calendar that Maureen had in her studio, her ceramic studio this past year. So it's dusty. I've wiped it off and it's sort of smashed here. A well-used calendar with lots of things written on the dates. But Kat's chilling with coffee. Got my coffee here, and she graciously bequeathed this to me. Oh, look at that cat. So anyway, I think these need to become little notebooks too, but let's just kind of get started harvesting some of the artwork that really speaks to us here. Oh, golly. I really like this robust fellow. How would he look on a journal page? See, I could make this 5.5 across. go down to 8. Yeah, I could make this into a decent sized journal cover, and I might do that. Let's harvest a little bit more. Oh, golly. Oh, these are so great. I want to look for one that I might be able to fold in half and have it be the front and the back. Oh, I can't stand it with these cats. Oh, just really thinking about it. Waiting for that friend who hasn't shown up yet. Mysterious. Wide-eyed. Here's one that I might be able to fold into 2. So let me grab, this situation calls for is a file folder. So I'm over here getting one. Got a little bit of information. I'm going to tear off that side. Yeah, let's use a file folder, and let's use this one to make a little notebook. We'll do that. I know. Oh, I love these so much, but I want to get to the others too. And I will be doing this in segments so that you don't have to watch every detail. But again, by now, as we know, you already know how these turned out. But this is how they started. Yeah, that's cute. I think that's going to be fine. And this could be sort of a tall, skinny notebook, and I think I would be fine with it that way. Let me cut. Again, I have no plan in mind. Usually I spend a lot of time making prototypes and such before we get together for our crafting sessions. But this time I just knew there was a lot that I wanted to do with these calendars. And I love having little small notebooks around. You know, they're great to have on hand, you know, that you can throw into your bag. They're really great as gifts. You know, they don't take any time at all to make. They're a good use of your craft materials. And they're wonderful when you're meeting that friend for coffee, when you're stopping in to see somebody, maybe they've just had surgery or gone through a tough time or something like that. Aren't they nice to have in a bag that you can just give to your friend? I'm just going to go ahead and glue this down. I'm going to use my glue stick here. Several people have been asking again why I use different glues for different purposes. This I'm going to keep the layers stacked together here so that they stay in the right place. For thin papers, I tend to use the glue stick because there's a little less moisture in it. And we have a little less distortion of our paper, although any distortion or curling that we have does tend to straighten out over time, especially if you put it under a heavy book or something like that. Now this, what did I do with my scraps? Yeah, I'll find a little patch or something to put there. Not that I need it, but maybe I'll just put a little ink underneath there. This is crafting in real time, folks. This is not me sitting around waiting for a solution. You know, I might have some colored ink that would kind of fill in that spot. Maybe I'll dab some of that on this corner as well. Now that's not going to make a whole lot of difference since I put the brown down there already. Yeah, it definitely shows, but you know what? Not going to worry. At least it's not going to look raw underneath there. And because that ink was still wet, I did a little smearing with the moisture of my glue stick. It's not going to show. Junk journaling helps you let go of perfection, which really opens up the possibilities of just enjoying the process. One of the things I love the most about this craft. There we go. Have a little bit of glue smeared. Take a little old t-shirt and rub that out. This makes a nice little cover. I think what I will do is just fill this, but maybe I'll put some cats on the inside as well. Should we do that? What else can we harvest? Because I'll probably put a pocket here and there, so I can concentrate my focal points up towards the top of the page. I almost want to not spend any of these cats for inside positions, but on the other hand, why not? I have them here. Maybe another thing I can do, maybe I can cut out these coffee cups, because we've got a coffee cup there. Maybe I can put a coffee cup there, or put that on the pockets. How about that? Let me grab some book page to line the inside of these pages with. There's something in Italian. And here's something not in Italian. They do not have to match. It looks like I can tear down the edges here, the margins. This is a very old book that Connie sent me some pages from recently. And this will be good for gluing onto a flat surface because I can preserve it that way. And I'm going to come out just a little bit to the right of that text block, or to the edge of that text block. There we go. And it would be nice if I had some vintage books about cats. I do not. And where do I want this to end up? Right around before that E. There we go. Now let's ink these. And again, yeah, I'm not going to make you endure every bit of this preparation. But I do want you to see how the process just sort of unfolds. So look at the basics of this little cat notebook and see this is tearing, and I just have to be okay with that. That's part of the natural life of this brittle paper. We're going to honor it anyway. Do you have a hard time lifting pages from books? I did. I used to. I used to. You know, I was the English major, the the journalism major also, but also the English major, and you know, just revered literature and the written word. You know, I was always the library kid and careful with my books, and so the idea of taking a book apart was a little frightening to me years ago when I began. And then I started realizing that so many books, I mean, there's no shortage of books in the world. It's not like it's a rare commodity. And I would never, I don't think any of you would either. We would never destroy something that was, you know, truly a rare volume, you know, a precious, costly, you know, if we had an original, the original version of the Magna Carta or something like that, or, you know, the Constitution, you know, that we revere. I would never use that in a craft project. But there's plenty of books that there's lots and lots of copies of most books in the world. And I do sometimes find some that I won't cut apart for crafts. Sometimes I'm lucky enough to find 2 copies of an old novel. And if it's a novel that I particularly love, I'll buy both of them if they're in a thrift store or at an estate sale or something, you know, scrap or someplace like that. If I have 2 copies, I save one to stay on the shelf and to preserve and to reread. And I'll use the other one to lift portions of it out, to have those little scraps of that text be part of a project. You know, I talk so much about Little Women. I love Little Women. I have many copies of Little Women here in my craft room. But I have more copies upstairs because I do run into, you know, multiple or to well-kept copies of Little Women in my search for craft supplies. I do frequently run into those, and I almost always buy a copy of Little Women when I see it. The ones that I tend to use in my, oh, Anne, look what I did there. Doggone it. Well, do you know what? I'm going to put another layer of book page there. If this was, you know, not clinging right away, I would peel this off and put this down the right way. But I'm going to cut another couple of pages there, and that way I'm covered all the way down to the bottom. So I'm okay there. Oh, golly. I'm thinking without, or working without thinking, I guess. Anyway, I do not have problems with using a vintage copy of Little Women, in particular if it's an abridged version, and I do find those from time to time. I don't care for the abridged versions as far as keeping them in my library, because you know, I know that there's been a lot that's edited out, and I prefer the full version. So an abridged version, if it has little, you know, bits, it has the vast majority of the text. But I can't believe I did that. Well, you know what? This is why I wanted to do this video this way, so you could go through the whole process with me. There we go. Anyway, people have said to me, how can you destroy a book? And I feel like the word destroy, it's not how I think of it. I think of it as dismantling, cutting into, but I also think of it as elevating portions of a book that otherwise, you know, it would sit on a shelf. It would sit in a garage. It would sit on the thrift store bin, and eventually it would get thrown away to the shredder. And isn't it, you know, if you're having to rank order the things that that happen to books in terms, if you have to think of them as good or bad, isn't it better? Isn't it, you know, saving the author's intention by pulling out little pieces, you know, little portions of that text and having little bits of it read, little bits of it creating intrigue, little bits of it remaining. Anyway, did not mean to get on to that that rant, but you know, that's what I do. All right, I'm about to get this fixed, and then we'll get into harvesting that other page, and then we will go to the other calendar. Anyway, so, you know, yes, if you want to think of using old books as destroying them, I completely understand that that practice may not be for everybody. If you feel you just can't do it, there are lots of other supplies you can use. Many other supplies that you can use. I've been saving these lately for a project we have coming up. Many other supplies that you can use, and you do not have to use any vintage book page at all. You can find online copies of many literary classics and print those out. You can scan things that you have yourself. There we go. Well, see, this little mistake of mine is not so bad, because these portions I'm going to be covering up with pockets, and now I have copy that's the right side up. That was an unexpected detour and is adding unnecessarily to the length of this video, but thank you for hanging in there with me. Now let's see if we can cut out these coffee cups. Pull out my sharper scissors. Definitely want to save these beasties, but I kind of hate to lose those little steam things. Coming out there. I'm going to put this one in here, and then I'll probably skip ahead. There we go. Well, there's no question that these calendars would have been tossed out. So most of us shouldn't be troubled by the idea of using old calendars. Yeah, that's going to fit nicely there. I'm going to cut out that little middle part and put some pockets here, and put some books or some a signature in there. So I will come back to this, but maybe you've seen it already. I don't know. Let's set the cat booklet aside, because there's quite a few that we can make out of this. And let's go to our other calendar. I just really want to use this Van Gogh inspired artwork. And I'm sorry, that's probably going to make a bit of a glare. But this is so big and so nice. Which one do we want? I love the barn, but I want something where I could kind of use a lot of the image on this side of the page. Whoa, that's gorgeous, isn't it? And that is really a Starry Night sort of thing. I think I'm going to use this. This is inspired by Voyageurs National Park, home of many bald eagles, apparently. Now, do I want to open this up by taking the staples out? I think I do. That's going to lessen the chances that I rip where I don't want to rip. Yeah, this was quite a find, I think. I've always loved Van Gogh, and so I was drawn to the artwork, and then I realized, oh wait, this is not Van Gogh. This is Van Gogh inspired. I've seen several Van Gogh exhibits, and you probably have too. Remember a few years ago that that immersive Van Gogh experience was sort of sweeping the nation. There we go. Hope that doesn't tip over. Whoops. And it is. All right. Let's release that. Anyway, that Van Gogh experience installation was just, it wasn't, you know, seeing actual works of Van Gogh. It was this multimedia experience that, let's see, I think I'm going to just go as wide as I can here. Anyway, you went into like a convention center, and there were images, digitized images of Van Gogh works that were projected on the walls and the ceiling and the floors, and you just were surrounded by, you know, of course, the swirliness of his style really lent itself to a wonderful, really interesting, kind of mind-blowing experience. And it was, I think we went in 2021 or maybe 2022. It was after, you know, the worst phases of the pandemic, and we'd all, of course, been vaccinated by then. Ooh, this was a 12-inch calendar, so I'm going to be able to make this 6x9. This is great. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and cut this down to 6x9. That's going to be great. And I could do this with several others as well. Pull it over here. Anyway, because you went in to this, it was a great activity for getting back out into the wild again. Because, you know, they only let in a certain amount of people into, you know, this convention center, big, you know, exhibit hall that had been, you know, was darkened and just transformed into this moving art exhibit. And, you know, you could stand by yourself. We were still masking at that time. And be kind of, you know, they limited the number of people that came in at any given time. Isn't this going to be a beautiful notebook? It's going to be gorgeous. Oh, I'm so happy with that. And then this piece we cut off. This could be a little notebook that goes inside. I have a lot of signature pages that I can stitch in. Oh, I want to do one more. Let's do one more, and then we'll get on to the one with the sketchiness. Sketchiness. Not really sketchy. Anyway, you could still stand far away from people and everything, and feel comfortable doing that. What do we think about this one? Yes. I like that. And it's falling, as I had hoped it would not, but yet it is. Anyway, it was quite a remarkable experience to be standing in this darkened convention center, not a ballroom, but a big exhibit hall and, you know, have this enormous digital version of Van Gogh's Starry Night and many, many of his other works, his portraits and such. He was an incredible portraiture artist as well. And to have it literally just be swirling all around you, it was amazing. Anyway, a very interesting rendition of the Van Gogh style in this particular calendar. There we go. Oh, I love this. And I'm just going to put this over the file folder. I might split these and do a fabric spine so I can get a little more depth into this. But yeah, and piece for a beautiful background for a tag. And we've got enough of this artwork throughout the calendar that we can repeat some of the images all the way through. Okay, let's do one more and then I'll get to my finishing. What are these? See, the thing that's fun about these, lots of individual, this is a lot thinner. Yeah. That would be cute. Also cute. Pretty. But if I folded it in half, I would be subdividing that robin. Oh, golly, how am I going to decide on these? Because the focal images are really centered on this. This is the artwork of an artist named Jane Shasky. Thank you, Jane Shasky, for sharing your talents with us. Now, here's one where the images are kind of split, but the indigo bunting that is clearly the showiest of the two here would be on the back if I folded that. I think I'm going to have to split these. Let's use this one because I think I see some challenges here. And I want us to be able to work through these. Anyway, I am not in any way an art history major or an expert on those things, but I did enjoy the Van Gogh exhibits and just his interesting, you know, tragic life. I used to have a Van Gogh poster on in my dorm room when I was in college. I'm going to go ahead and choose this one. There we go. And it was his room at a asylum. It was an interior. I forget what it's called. Oh, which one do I want to do? I think we're going to do the goldfinches. There we go. Yeah. Anyway, when I was in college, I had this Van Gogh poster on my wall, and it made me remember that Van Gogh went through some very difficult times, and if I was struggling in college a little bit, as I did in the later years, I took some inspiration that he channeled his woes into creativity and artwork, and I did not do artwork, but I was a writer, so anyway, I could do the same thing, and guess what? I made it through. Oh, what do we want to do with this? This almost makes me think we want to do a pocket and not a cover. And I think I'm going to do that with both of these. How wide is this? Yeah, I could kind of fold in little gussets on either side, but let's tear this in two and we'll have a matching pair of pockets. And this could actually go inside the front and back cover of a journal. Let's mount this onto some paper to strengthen it up because this is rather thin paper. So we'll pull a couple of pages of this, what we're using as our glue book here, and get that prepped. I don't often have videos where I'm really starting from scratch and thinking through in real time, so this is unusual for me. And if it's sort of slow, you know, this may not this may not be a video for everyone, as I haven't done the full prep, but that's just what I kind of felt like doing today. And maybe you have calendars that you're struggling with how to use too. We don't have to use all of them. There's many's the time I have just made pockets and things, particularly if it's if the images aren't things that I'm particularly excited about. I'll go in. There's wonderful pockets that you can make just out of those numerical grids with the dates. So you can do that too. There we go. Yeah, I like this. I like using this. I can kind of cut out that little herb garden portion, but I can keep some of these beautiful nasturtium that are here. I love nasturtium. I love having them in my garden. So I'm going to cut this off. We're going to tear it off. This tearing is what we kind of tend to do here, isn't it? Or cut with a craft knife. Tearing is often faster, but this paper is a little soggy with the glue, so. There we go. And yeah, that's going to make, I think, a really nice pocket, particularly if we choose something else from that same calendar to put on the cover, and then we can kind of have some cohesive work, some work that just makes sense as you're thumbing through your journal. Not to say that you can't have wildly eclectic things in there as well, but I generally feel a little more comfortable. Not if it's matchy-matchy. I don't like matchy-matchy, but I kind of like a feel, an aesthetic that goes all the way through. What I'm going to do here, because this is 5 1/4, I'm going to just fold little gussets here. And if I have my signature pages that are probably going to be about 5 1/2 inches wide, or a little less, these gussets will help give that pocket a little more space to put things in, so it's not perfectly flat against the page, although I do plenty of those as well. And there we go. So you can see where these pockets are going, and I think those are going to be really nice on the inside the front and back cover of a journal. I'm going to take a break now, and I am going to just do a whole bunch of crafting with these calendars, and I'll come back and we will once again review what I've done. I'll let you know if I have any more adventures, like turning things upside down. Okay, so it's really been fun. and a really different experience to be working on 3 little journals, little notebooks at once. I wanted to finish these up with you here. Here is the my unfortunate inside of the cat notebook, where I got the first take of the liner on upside down. But I thought that this might be a cute little topper here. And just, you know, I thought even about putting little bubbles up here. But I think I'm just going to leave this. This is just a little stamped image that I did on a scrap of packing paper. I'm going to be talking a little bit more quite soon about the stamp I used for this and some others that I got here at a local source here in Portland. But we'll just get this glued down here, and then I'm going to show you my thought for pockets for the inside. And I have just a little bit of finishing up to do on the others, so we'll get that all done here together. There we go. For the pockets in the front and back, I was saving, you know, I had scraps from this. I had, you know, scraps that I cut the coffee cups out from these, and a couple of other. I can't wait to use these in another project. But I had these scraps, and the colors are so luscious. I thought, let's put some of these scraps into a little bit of a collage and use those for the pockets, front and back. So I made a couple of pocket bases here. These are just book page with the little gussets on it. And I'm just going to mount a couple of strips onto them. I think these are, yeah, that would work too. So let me just kind of trim these up. I like these roughly edges, but for this particular piece, I think I'm going to cut it straight off. So the scraps throughout the calendar go together very harmoniously. And I thought we might as well use those as a little background for these pockets, and maybe this will give you an idea for ways that you can use some of your own leftover calendars. I'm wondering if you have been saving some. Maybe a couple of weeks ago you took your 2025 calendars down off the wall and thought, oh, can I do anything with these? Well, you know, you can always use those numbers. They're great to use in a December daily. But how nice to be able to use the fun artwork that we find ourselves admiring throughout the year. And let's get this. Oh, that's almost all the way there. That's okay. Use our wood glue. And this won't take too long. It really has been fun working on all 3 of these, because I've sort of kind of used the same process for all 3, and you'll see the other 2 in a moment. Well, I guess you've already seen the results somewhat. But it was fun. It was fun to just go through and harvest these. Do I have a little bit of a scrap? I'll use this one. I'll do a little bit of overlap here, and then I'll trim everything down. I'll do the other one, and we'll get those put into the journal cover. I was showing what I had done particularly with this little cat notebook. I can't wait to make more. Oh, I'm going to have to put this under something heavy to hold that down. A little bit of that slick surface it's going to be a little hard to grip there. Anyway, I was showing what I was doing with my daughter, or what I was doing with the calendar to my daughter today. And oh, she just loved it. And she observed, and this was something that I really had in mind too, if you're just keeping a stash of these little notebooks handy to give as a gift, this is a great kind of notebook to share with friends because it's not intimidating. And I think we talked about this before as well, but sometimes the full-on junk journal, you know, the big gator mouth kind that we love in junk journal world, that can be intimidating if folks are not used to doing that kind of journaling. You know, I've had so many people like at craft shows, craft fairs, you know, just really enjoy looking through some of those big journals and saying to me, oh, I'd be afraid to write in it. I'd be afraid to write in it, you know, which to me is like, you know, looking at a beautiful appetizer and saying it's too pretty to eat. Well, nothing's ever too pretty to eat, and nothing is ever. Let's go ahead and just cut off a little piece here. No journal should ever be too beautiful to write in. They are not complete until you put your mark on them, literally. And this, if you just have, you know, just an empty little journal with these blank pages, you know, you can find yourself easily writing on those. Yes, you can. This is easily used. So anyway, that's why these sorts, you know, a calendar is just a really great way to make these sort of quick little projects. You know, you can tell people I made this out of last year's old calendar, and they get it. You know, they get that. But they can use it as a journal. They can keep notes in it. Anything that you would use a regular notebook for. All right, there's that little pocket. Here's this one. You will have seen the finished version already, but I wanted you to see how it was made since you had to spend so much of the first part of this video watching me correct one of my mistakes in covering up some upside down liner paper. There we go. Now, shall we? Yeah, let's put a little bit of a punch in there. Pull out one of my circle punches. Glad I have several thicknesses in here because a really thin paper can be difficult to punch through. Again, there's a somewhat slick edge here, so I'm not really certain how well that Distress ink is going to cling, but it takes a little bit of the rawness off. There we go. Now let's get this put together and then we can get on to finishing up the others. Oh, I love this little cat. I can't wait to use the rest. There we go. I can't wait to use the rest of the calendar. And I could make tags to go in here, but you know, I think I could give this as a gift with just empty pockets. People could put their own notes in there, receipts and instructions about things. There we go. And those colors are fitting perfectly with the rest of the journal. That's just a great way to use the scraps from your calendar art. There we go. Oh, I love this. I like those little coffee cups. There we go. This, I was going to say, this little puppy, this little kitty is done. I'm going to put it under, I might slip a little more glue under those corners and put this under a heavy book. And that's going to be ready to give to a friend. Let's get on to our next one. I think let's go to the Van Gogh. I took one of the Van Gogh pages and I cut it in half, and I actually glued each half onto a separate piece. Bit of washi tape from my desk. A separate piece of old file folder, and these just measured 6 by 9. And each half measures 6 by 9, and then I joined them together with just a strip of color coordinated fabric that I had. This is from the batch of some of the napkins that I made over Christmas, and I took another month focal point artwork from another month and just lined the inside with that same Van Gogh inspired artwork. But I decided to take a couple of pieces of scrap paper that I had here and use those as pockets. And so I have those ready. There's just a little bit of contrast there. And then these calendars, most of them have little thumbnails, you know, the little small illustrations that, if you're looking at the packaging on the outside, you know, give you a preview of what you'll find in the month-to-month artwork offerings. And they're often on the back page, you know, like this, you know, this one here. We all are familiar with that packaging protocol or custom for yearly calendars. And so I cut this was on the back cover, so it's a little bit thick, but I cut a couple of thumbnails out, and I thought I will just use those on the pockets. I'll do this here. This is just one sheet of a very lightweight decorative paper from my scrapbook stash. And I have inked the outside. I'm not bothering to put a thumb notch there. And yes, I think I'm going to use my Aleene's Tacky Glue, because this has quite a glossy finish on this, from this calendar. This was the back of the calendar, and it was a pretty nice quality calendar. So it was a fairly thick back cover and a glossy finish on that. So the Tacky Glue, I believe, is going to help that to adhere. And again, I know you have already seen this, because of our opening segment. But this is how it goes together. I didn't want people saying, gosh, Ann, you showed us the finished product, and then on the process video, we didn't get to see how it came together. Well, this is how it comes together. There we go. In each of these, I just did, I think I did a 5-hole pamphlet stitch, stitching the signatures in each one of these little notebooks. I believe I put 8 pages in each one, which gives 8 sheets of paper, which means it's a 32-page journal. So anyway, no, I haven't put anything. These are all just straight journaling pages. There we go. So here is our little Van Gogh piece. And I think I thought about putting one of those little toppers up there. But you know, I don't want to cover up that sun. I don't want to put it in the middle because I might want to tie, put a tie around. So I think I'm just going to let this beautiful artwork stand on its own for the cover of this notebook. And I might cut another piece of this cotton and make a tie to go around it that way. So there's that one. Here is our last one. You saw me struggle a little bit with what to do for a cover with this bird sketch or bird artwork calendar, because many of the images here had the focal point in the middle of the panel. Well, this one had a twofer, but like this one, you know, right in the middle. Yeah, this one, I experimented with doing a little bit of folding. But anyway, that robin was right in the middle, or like this would be another example, you know, where your eye goes right to the middle. There's nothing really over here or really over there. So I thought, what's a way that I could use those, an image that had a composition like that, but capitalize on the image itself, but have a coordinated front and back. And I thought, you know, I'm just going to pair it with some a little bit of text from a gardening book. This is clearly springy and gardeny, and so I tore out a couple of pages in a gardening book, and I just sort of did a little. I cut out the image focusing, so really centering the focal point there that was in the middle of the page. And the part that I cut off, which was just a partial page here, it wouldn't have covered the full back. But if I paired it with another piece of garden book, that seems to have it all make sense. So anyway, I'm very happy with this. I have not put a signature in yet, but I did line. This is another one where I had 2 separate pieces and joined them with a strip of cotton fabric, machine stitching it into place. I guess I did machine stitch around the other 2 as well. So while I have not done the signature yet, I thought we could go ahead and put in the where's my pen? Well, I'll set that here. Oh, I did put a metal tip on my little wood glue thing. I got that from Maymay. Maymay made it. I think it's under $5. I got a couple, so I like the flow that I get on my wood glue out of that little metal tip. Anyway, let's go ahead and put this down. I'm using, again, because this is a heavier paper that has a little bit of a gloss to it, I'm going to want to use my tacky glue. I haven't used my Fabri-Tac in quite a long while. I don't want to abandon it because I don't want it to dry up, but I have been enjoying the good performance of the Aleene's tacky glue for my heavier duty adhesive needs. But yeah, pairing a gardening page with this bird calendar just was the perfect answer to me. And I happened to choose on the gardening page. This was just by luck. I chose a page about the nasturtium, and I've got a nasturtium growing here and here. And I realized that I did, yeah, I glued down the wrong side. I should have glued down the top. So I'm going to glue down the top. You're seeing me make all kinds of mistakes here, but you know what? That happens. That happens. It's been a few hours since this was glued down, so I'm going to do that one here. And then I'm only going to glue down these 3 sides. That side won't be gusseted. It will be fine. There will be extra room in this pocket, extra space. There we go. I suppose I was rushing a little bit, but that happens. So no floppy gusset there, but we have a beautiful pocket that we can put here. And then probably tomorrow I'll stitch in a signature, and that will be done as well. And this is one that I think I'm not going to have to put any sort of other topper on at all, because I don't want to cover that up. I think that's a beautiful, beautiful journal cover, and one that's not going to be so intimidating that somebody is going to be afraid to use it. So anyway, so that is that. Here are these 3. And I hope you have fun. Use those calendars and use all of them. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.